SITREP World Briefing for May 9, 2026. The United States and Iran traded fire in the Gulf around the Strait of Hormuz on May 9th. The exchange showed that the two governments were still far from a durable end to the war, with military action continuing in one of the world's most strategically sensitive waterways. The fighting came as Washington waited for Tehran's response to its latest proposal. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi condemned the American action as a reckless military adventure and argued that the United States had struck each time a diplomatic solution was on the table. The location of the clash raised the stakes well beyond the immediate battlefield. The Strait of Hormuz is the narrow maritime gateway between the Persian Gulf and the Arabian Sea, and any exchange of fire there threatens commercial shipping, energy flows, and the military posture of neighboring Arab states, as well as the United States and Iran. The Pentagon and the U.S. government released a new batch of declassified UFO-related files and footage in Washington, with the disclosure beginning on May 8th as part of a transparency push around unidentified aerial phenomena. The material includes videos and documents showing bright lights, mysterious objects, and other aerial incidents recorded in different locations over several years, placing an official national security framework around a subject that has long sat between military intelligence, aviation safety, and popular speculation. The footage released by the Pentagon shows what U.S. authorities described only as unexplained or unidentified aerial phenomena, rather than confirmed extraterrestrial craft. A distinction that matters because the government has increasingly treated such sightings as incidents requiring documentation and analysis. By publishing declassified records from multiple years and locations, the Defense Department is signaling that at least some previously restricted material can be made public without disclosing operational secrets, while also responding to sustained public and political pressure for greater openness about military encounters in American airspace. The release is significant because Pentagon handling of UFO reports has shifted in recent years from dismissive public messaging toward a more structured process centered on data collection, declassification, and periodic disclosure. Washington has faced recurring demands from lawmakers, researchers, and voters for records that might clarify whether reported objects reflect sensor errors, foreign surveillance technology, or phenomena that remain unresolved. And the latest publication adds new official material to that debate without claiming a definitive explanation for the images now in circulation. President Vladimir Putin used Russia's Victory Day parade in Moscow to defend the war in Ukraine, telling the annual Red Square ceremony that Russian soldiers were fighting an aggressive force backed by NATO and portraying the Kremlin's aims as just. Victory Day is Russia's most important state commemoration of the Soviet defeat of Nazi Germany in 1945. The parade unfolded as the Kremlin sought to display resilience and legitimacy despite Russia's diplomatic isolation from much of Europe. Putin's speech was aimed not only at troops fighting in Ukraine, but also at foreign audiences weighing Russia's staying power. By framing the conflict as a defensive struggle against the West, Putin continued a line the Kremlin has used for more than 4 years to justify the costs of war to the Russian public and military families. Moscow's annual parade remains a major domestic political ritual because it combines military display, wartime symbolism, and presidential messaging in one televised event. Prime Minister Keir Starmer said he would not resign after Labour suffered major losses in local and regional elections across the United Kingdom, with his party losing hundreds of council seats in England and falling behind Plaid Cymru in Wales, while Reform UK made significant gains. Starmer instead vowed to fight on and listen to voters. The scale of the losses sharpened questions about Labour's political direction and about whether Starmer can hold together a coalition of urban progressives, traditional working-class voters, and moderates worried about immigration, public services, and living standards. Reform's surge was especially damaging because it suggested Nigel Farage's party is converting protest sentiment into local electoral power, while Labour's weak performance in Wales carried extra symbolism in a part of Britain where the party has long relied on institutional strength and historic loyalty. Starmer's refusal to step down keeps the immediate leadership crisis at bay, But the election results raise the stakes for the government's next policy moves on growth, migration, and public services. Local elections in Britain often serve as an early warning system rather than a final verdict, yet losses on this scale can embolden internal critics, unsettle lawmakers, and strengthen rivals' claims that the governing party is failing to convert national power into local confidence. For Starmer, the political test now is whether he can show visible improvement before doubts about his authority harden inside labor itself. The World Health Organization, Spanish health authorities, and the response team aboard the MV Hondias moved to coordinate an evacuation in Tenerife as the cruise ship approached the Canary Islands after a hantavirus outbreak linked to at least 5 confirmed cases. Spanish officials prepared to receive more than 140 passengers and crew members, while the WHO chief was due in the Canaries to help oversee the operation. The arrival turned Tenerife into the main logistical hub for isolating travelers, arranging testing and tracing contacts across multiple countries after deaths and infections were tied to the voyage. The outbreak response expanded beyond Spain because about 12 countries had already been linked to passengers from the MV Hondias, prompting a worldwide effort to trace people who may have been exposed. Health officials have stated that hantavirus is not spreading in the same way as COVID-19, while they warn that additional cases could still emerge from the ship cluster. That distinction has shaped the Tenerife operation. Authorities are focusing on targeted quarantine, testing, and evacuation rather than the kind of broad social restrictions used during the coronavirus pandemic, while still treating the ship as a serious cross-border public health incident. On Tenerife, the approaching ship also stirred local unease, with some residents questioning why the island should receive a vessel associated with a fatal outbreak. The operation's stakes extend beyond the pier in Tenerife, because successful disembarkation, quarantine, and onward repatriation could determine how quickly authorities in Europe, Asia, and elsewhere can close contact tracing gaps and prevent further infections from the Hondias cluster. Sources are available at sitrepbrief.com.